Good afternoon, CUT Collective. It's Rev Sheree here. I am so excited to be here with another Sunday Sermon Rewind. This is our weekly series, mostly weekly. We missed a week last week, but it's all good, or maybe the week before. But as schedules permit, we will be here each and every week. I'll be looking at the sermon prior, right? So this past Sunday at Christ Universal Temple, Reverend Gaylon McDowell gave the lesson sermon. And so we're going to unpack that lesson. I want to just give you a little bit more about the CUT Collective. We are the online ministry for Christ Universal Temple. And the commitment that I have made is to show up for you, to help us bring together, build community. And I'm so grateful that we have had such a powerful start. These rewinds are specifically designed for you, those of you who connect to CUT through online options. Like you're coming in through Zoom calls for the Consciousness Builder call. You're coming in and watching the service on YouTube or on Facebook. You're checking in. You're a part of this Facebook group. And I want to encourage you, if that somehow, maybe you're watching this on YouTube, I want you to join into the conversation in the community, because each and every week we're going to talk about the sermon. So if you have questions, you should let me know on Sunday or Monday before I start pulling clips so that I can make sure to pull the piece that really hits your heart. And so I'm going to do my very best. I believe that what I pulled today is going to be exactly what we need in order to illumine the idea of order, which is the topic for today's discussion. And so without further ado, I'm going to bring in Reverend Gaylon, and we'll start this powerful conversation.
All right. Hello, everybody. Hey there, Reverend Sheree.
Hello. So it's good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. But I'm thrilled to be able to work on this. So I don't know if y'all can see this, but order is as part of the Color Key program, old school Color Key program, we go month by month, and September is the month of order, and that's my birth month, so I had to wear my button today to declare order. And so I'm glad that we'll be able to talk about this, because I really appreciated how you broke down order for us as part of this Unleash Your Power series. And I think we got some good stuff in store. How you been, though? It's been a minute since we've chatted.
Oh, I'm good. You know, I'm glad to get the JCI online conference off of my head. With Dr. Erico, Reverend Sheree James, Reverend Roderick Norton, Reverend Valerie McGee. We put together something, I thought, over 3 days that was really impactful, that was very educational and transformational.
What was the topic? The name of it?
Mysticism, Jesus, and the Bible. Mm-hmm. And it was completely online for those who do want to, who missed it. It'll be available within a few days. You can purchase it on the Christ Universal Temple website. It's $50. You get top Aramaic Bible scholar in the world, Dr. Rocco Erico, who was teaching mysticism found in the Gospel of John. I was teaching what is mysticism, and then I taught another lesson for about 1 hour and 45 minutes called The Mystical Jesus, which was an outline of why Jesus was a mystic, and then the metaphysical interpretation of Jesus. Mm-hmm. The Reverend Valerie McGee was teaching mystical communion through prayer. The Reverend Sheree James was teaching metaphysical Bible interpretation and why it's important. And the Reverend Roderick Norton was teaching about mysticism and money. So I thought we covered a lot of ground in 3 days, and including Dr. Erico doing a fantastic Q&A session where he was answering all questions pertaining to the Bible for about 30 minutes.
Yeah. So I just wanted to repeat that this will be available for purchase, so that if you missed the live version, it's not over for you. You can absolutely catch it. And so I'll make sure to promote that next week. So when it's live, I'll make sure that you all know how to find it, because what I thought was powerful about it was just this idea of demystifying mysticism, like just really the idea of it being something for this separated people. You got to be specially anointed to be a mystic. And so I love that, folding in practical Christianity in that. Like, that's what we're doing. That's what we are about.
Yes, absolutely.
So that'll be to come, and I'm excited. I'm excited about seeing that again, because I saw probably 80% of it. So I'm excited to see see it in its entirety.
I am too. I
Yeah.
would. Yeah, go
You know
ahead.
how it is when you're working it. It's like,
Yeah,
okay,
you're
I want to
working
just
on like,
absorb. Yeah, I want to absorb it.
yes,
Yeah, very, very great. So the other thing I want to just mention, because we're here live, but also what's happening in real time right now is the launch of the People of African Descent in New Thought, celebrating our soul conference taking place in at the Unity Village in St. Louis, Missouri, Lee Summit.
Lee Summit, Missouri, which
Lee
is
Summit,
really
Missouri.
Unity Village now. It's actually has its own city title or town. It's technically Unity Village, Missouri.
Missouri. Okay.
Yeah,
All right. Come on, Unity. So the birthplace of and the headquarters for the Unity. I was gonna say Unity School of Practical Christianity. I know they've changed names and all kind of things and
yes,
shortened, but it's the headquarters for Unity. And I'm just blessing all of the speakers, all of the attendees at that conference. Looking
yes,
forward to hearing about it. I won't be at it this year, but I know that it's going to be magnificent. Um,
absolutely.
and if you are interested in it, I think it's padnt.org, and they do have online registrations that are available. I believe they're sold out for in person, but they do have online available. So that's my loving support for them, and I'm praying for an amazing experience as the New Thought leaders, the New Thought community around the globe, and specifically in the U.S., gather to commune and to grow together.
And I believe Reverend
Um,
Wells is the keynote speaker on Sunday.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
He's speaking. Reverend Sheila McKeithen is speaking. Reverend Sheree James is speaking. I'm not who else from the UFBL is speaking, but I know for sure those three are going to bring it. So I love that we're being represented in this experience. So it'll be great. It'll be great.
Yeah.
All right. So let's dive in as we're talking about the divine gift of order. And so, just with order being established, I just want to open us up with a brief prayer, just acknowledging the power and presence of God that is mighty in the midst of us, leading and guiding and pushing us into higher heights. We open our minds and hearts, trusting that the information shared here will be exactly what we need to hear in order to grow, in order to be all that we are created to be. We trust this implicitly in the name, nature, and consciousness of the Christ, and we allow it to be so, and so it is. Amen and ashe. Oh, I'm dropping jewelry. Dropping jewelry. Okay, so I don't do well at just recognizing that we're here for an hour or less and pulling clips that are appropriate to that time period. So but I think I'm starting to get the hang of it. So I pulled some clips. Do know that if you have a question, if you are with us live and have a question, feel free feel free to I just caught a message. Feel free to add in the comments the question you have, add it in the comments, and I'll be sure to address your question. I know I know that just in terms of live audience, if you're clicking in with us or if you're with the noonday meditation, it's all good. They're all banked and recorded so you can enjoy them at any time you like. All right. So the CUT, shout out to the CUT family who's enjoying the daily inspiration. Enjoy that and jump on over when the DI is over. All right. So how many gifts have you done? Do you remember the ones you covered in this series?
I think this was my third. Wait a minute. I taught. That's a great question. I know I taught wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
I know Rev did faith, strength. I think I did love
You did
and
love.
wisdom. I did
Yeah.
love and wisdom. This will be the third one.
Okay.
Order. Yeah.
So love, wisdom, and order. What an interesting combination to focus on.
Absolutely.
So the just in terms of setting up, if you wouldn't mind just sharing with us your perspective on why we're focusing on these 12 powers, what they are and why we're focusing on them.
Well, this concept of everyone being born with innate spiritual gifts, faculties, or abilities is something that is unique in the least in the Christian circle or Christian world as New Thought Christians. So the concept is basically you have ideas, that these divine ideas that work through our mentality that also have some level of physical expression in our body, life, world, and affairs. So as we learn how to work with a specific faculty, we're actually learning how to uh, spiritually evolve, how to regulate or balance consciousness so it's in alignment with the presence of God within us, and to then again practically apply it to our lives for better living. So when I understand, for instance, love and how love is supposed to show up in my life, role, and affairs, that makes my life better. If I understand how faith or wisdom or order or any particular faculty, imagination, it helps us understand how to live in alignment with our spiritual truth and practically as it shows up in our relationships, as it shows up in work, with our health, with our money, et cetera, et cetera. This is basically about becoming awakened to who you are in God and who God is in you. That's the real. And if I, if I wanted to put on my hardcore metaphysician hat, I would say that the 12 powers that or 12 gifts of humanity, or Charles Fillmore called them the 12 powers of man, are solely for the purpose of demonstrating the Christ in your own life, role, and affairs, which is going to be, when we wrap this series up, is actually what I'm going to be preaching, because that's my sermon. We've learned these 12. Now, what does it all mean? It means to be, if you can handle it, if a person, if you're new, what I'm about to say might sound exceptionally radical and maybe even insane. But the purpose of this concept of the 12 powers of man is to become a conscious Christ.
I was I went to the movies just recently, and I saw Deadpool and Wolverine, which was a vile movie, hilarious and vile.
We as ministers, we can't promote it.
It's incredibly vile. And funny story is that when Deadpool first came out, mind you, I'm ignorant to this. I have a son, and him and his buddy wanted to go see Deadpool. It's a Marvel movie.
Yeah.
Can you imagine sitting in Deadpool with two 13-year-olds?
Oh my God.
Yeah. I was mortified. Okay, I do not. It's rated R. Let me just say that for any parents who are listening.
Hard R.
But it's a hard rated R. But the idea behind superhero movies, right? Because as the Marvel universe has expanded, a lot of it has gotten away from the origin story, right? Which is where the superhero discovers that they're super and then have to manage their powers. If you think about a movie like The Incredibles, and the children are discovering their powers and how to use them under when needed, like outside of just playing around with it, but what happens when I need to exhibit this power? So I look at the 12 powers like that too, is that these are the powers in you that we have to learn to master. And so I think the idea of being a conscious Christ, right, of being a superhero, of being your spiritual self, is it's not elite. But I think from a hardcore metaphysician standpoint, right, you're going to be a conscious Christ. If you can't handle that, if that terminology just doesn't rock with you, it is that you're going to be your super self. Like there is a version of you that's greater and better than how you have been presenting yourself. And Absolutely. So I'm excited because order is oftentimes the reason we can't get ourselves behind or moving forward is really just not, we haven't declared order. And so I want to dive in. I don't even remember what the setup for this clip, because it was I deleted some clips because again I pulled too many, and there was some good ones, but this one I call warning signal. But I want to introduce this idea of divine order, and I believe this is how you set it up.
Okay, all right, let's check it out.
We're concerned about the things, but the way to get the things is to put God first. We're caught up in the attachments of life, but Jesus is saying, but if you put God first, you get the stuff. But here's the beauty of it. The stuff will reflect God, not the erroneous beliefs that occupy human consciousness. Some of the stuff that we get in life on our own should come with a warning label.
Yeah.
So so the first part about God first, I think that is important to talk about, because you made a so this idea of what we want and warning labels, I thought was pretty funny. But the reality is that you talked about what it means to put God first. And I think that hit that churchy feeling, right? Of
Yeah.
I got it. So I have to be like out here talking about God all the time. And every time somebody talks to me about anything, I got to pull a Bible verse. And so you made a distinction between what you're saying and putting God first, and maybe in some of those concepts. Share a little bit about what you meant by putting God first. How do you put God first?
Yeah. So first thing I actually said in the sermon in a different part of it. I think right before that clip. That doesn't mean you walking around with the Bible underneath your arm, spewing Bible verses to everybody who's around you. What it means is take into account what is true about God and true about you in the moment decisions that and encounters that you have in life.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, this situation comes, a bill that comes up. God first. Okay, God is the source of my supply. It can be a situation, a circumstance where you're having a breakdown in your family. God first. Okay, how do I need to tap into this inner wisdom to be able to properly respond in love, in grace, in peace, in joy, etc.? It might be a situation where it's a breakdown at work. Okay, God first. Okay, God is the source of my supply. This job is a channel. Yes. Now, how should God in me respond to this situation and circumstance?
Mm-hmm.
It could be, a medical diagnosis. Okay, God first. Okay. Yes, I might have to make decisions about putting my rest in order, diet in order, but I also need to put my mind and my mouth in order to make sure that I am in alignment with the truth of my being, what's true about God and true about me,
Yes.
versus allowing the as I think I called it, tsunami of beliefs that sometimes comes to us, and we start to act out from our sense of personal identity.
Mm-hmm.
That's not necessarily always based in truth. So what I'm really saying is get back to your truth. That's how you put God first. Get back to your truth. And when I say your truth, I don't mean just it's not God's truth, but until God's truth becomes your truth, it's not a truth in your life.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be personalized. And that's how you put God first. It's what am I thinking based upon spiritual principles and laws? Am I speaking based upon the presence of God's wholeness in me? Am I speaking, thinking, feeling, believing based upon the understanding of God's divine provision for me, divine health, life for me, divine grace, love, peace, joy, harmony for me? Or am I allowing my emotions to be stimulated into having me behave and talk in ways that are inconsistent with our true spiritual nature?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's an opportunity that we have. So two things. This is why this community is so important. This is why spiritual study is so important, because God first it seems simple, right? It seems simple in the sense of, let me put God first, but what's the nature of God? Like you need to understand that nature. And so what you demonstrated in those examples is that I'm recognizing that God is all the good there is. I'm recognizing that I can come out of the way that I've been thinking about something and elevate it. So I have some control over what I think. And so we began to what we want to do is empower you with your divine makeup and how to use it. Because things happen, and I'll tell you, I mean, it happens to all of us. You'll just be in a swirl of the activity and forget who you are, forget, just in forgetfulness, because the facts are so convincing. Right. And so this is not to say that things don't happen, that there are not things going on in life that feel big, but you can always begin to work a God first idea. And this is, I want to share the definition that you gave us of order. Right? Because this is the idea we're talking about, that order is a divine idea. Order is the idea of adjustment. And as order is established in your thoughts, your mind and affairs will be at one with universal harmony. So what you've been talking about so far has been the idea of adjustment.
Right.
that you can adjust your thinking from the problem in your face to what's the truth about who you are and who God is in the midst of what you're going through.
Right.
Um, and it's a practice. Let me say that. The first thing is to practice. Somebody wrote in the chat, Rev, that they've been doing their homework, right? Because you gave some specific homework. Some of the most doable homework that I think you've given in a long time. It was to
In a
work.
while.
Yeah.
In a while.
Work an affirmation. Everything in my life is in divine order. And so Mike says that Michael. Is it Michael or Miko?
It could be, I would say Miko, but
Miko. Okay, Miko. I believe that's Miko. Thank you for joining in with us live. And she says she's been doing her homework. Everything in my life is in divine order. And so that is a way to reestablish your thoughts. One of the things I do, I've given this practice before, is I wear rings or bracelets on my hand. And so sometimes when my mind is out of order, I switch the jewelry to another hand so that I can then say that affirmation. Everything in my life is in divine order. And it helps me change my train of thought. So it's one of the ways that I make that adjustment in my mind. Right. So if so from the idea of adjustment, what else what do you think is in terms of steps to get there? Like if you may mention one about a diagnosis, like, so how do I adjust my mind behind what the doctor is telling me and what I should be, where my mind really should be?
Well, I think part of it is, first of all, I think I've had the wonderful benefit of being a part of this community, which has been supportive in the transformation of my own mind. So let me just put that out. I'm a big believer in community, and being in class, being in service, if you're online commenting, making sure that you're around like-minded individuals really helps. Now, from an individual perspective, when you're dealing with the situation and circumstance, there's two ways in which you can handle it. I'm gonna give both ways because I think every human being deals with it from either one of these two perspectives. The first perspective is like when we were children, when we were taught, if your clothes catch on fire, stop, drop, and roll, right? So what that means is, ahead of the situation, you've done some level of prep, you've done some level of study, you have some level of understanding that tells you when this happens, you do this. This is what being a part of a community like CUT does, taking the JCI classes, being here for the rewinds, watching the daily inspiration lessons, or reading your daily inspiration, reading your books. I'm prepared ahead of time that when it happens. Now, what happens when you don't know to stop, drop, and roll? All right. Now, this is where on the back end of the situation, immersing yourself as much as you can in the information that you need to help you recalibrate. So in other words, in emergency situations, you don't have time for frivolous things. When that diagnosis is that diagnosis, when that mortgage is behind, when the divorce is imminent, and you got to get yourself in order. What that sometimes can mean is you have to build, and hear me when I say this, audience, you have to build what I'm going to use the term systematic rituals in your life that point you back to truth. Okay. Like, okay, what are you going to put in place to say, okay, I'm reading this, I'm listening to that, I'm calling the church and saying, hey, I need a point of spiritual counseling session with a minister. I'm getting my own therapist. I'm getting in a mastermind group. I'm getting a prayer accountability partner. I'm going to immerse myself. I got to get some 3x5 cards or whatever you need to do and write your affirmations out, put your favorite scriptures on them, sit down and read them, affirm them, visualize it. I'm talking about complete immersion, because when you are in the midst of the storm, you don't have time to play games. You don't have time to waste time. You can't deal with frivolous things and distractions to your energy when you're trying to push through to get a breakthrough.
Yeah.
This is really important. You have to put the systematic ritual into your life. In other words, this is what I'm going to do daily. This is what I'm going to do daily. I don't know if you have the clip of me talking about the asthma thing when I was younger, but one of the things that I did during that time, which I didn't mention because it's just from time's sake, not telling the whole story, was I made affirmations on 3x5 cards. And in one of the classes, Reverend Wilmetta said that the subconscious mind deals with color better. So I had color like neon pink and orange and whatever, and I would write affirmations on them. And then I would write Bible scriptures on the back of the card. And I was doing this besides reading all that I was reading. And I had my, back then, Walkman, and listening to whatever I needed to listen to, and listening to it when I was at home, and listening to it playing while I was going to sleep, because I was trying to get an understanding. What that means is you have to get to the place where it's systematic, ritualistic practices. And when I say ritual, I don't mean from a religious standpoint. I mean from the standpoint of, most people brush their teeth and put on the deodorant and whatever after they shower or bathe. They have a ritual which they follow that becomes almost unconscious. You have to have something in your life that you do over and over again consistently to recalibrate your mind, pull you back into divine harmony, and remind yourself of who you are in God and who God is in you. And one of the main ways you do that is through the systematic ritual. And the other is watch your mouth. Speak life. Speak your life up. Do not speak your life down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's powerful when you think about the how your homework ties into this, right? So
Right.
I don't want you to think that these things are too big a leaps for you. So
Right.
the idea, the practice of affirming everything in my life is in divine order is a part of that ritualistic practice he's talking about. When you think about stopping to pray before you eat, right? To say grace before you eat, that is a ritualistic practice, that I'm giving thanks. So there are things that you're doing. If you ever read the book Atomic Habits, one of the suggestions that's given in the text is to attach a new habit to something you're already doing.
Yeah.
So if you already, you brush your teeth every day, that's a moment when you can begin to affirm the truth about who you can tag it on to something that you do already. But this idea of adjustment, this is where we have to begin to develop discipline around the adjustments, because just like Rev said, you can absolutely shift something in the height of a storm. You can absolutely grab hold of the truth and work it in the midst of whatever the challenge is. But the point that's being made here is to practice your way so that you want to have an understanding faith. You want to know that, hey, wait a minute, I can shift this situation because I've been practicing adjusting my thinking behind the truth.
Right.
This next clip you talk about false prophets. Let's dive in. Let me get this out of the way. Here we go.
When your mind is in divine order, you can discriminate false and erroneous thoughts. Those are those false prophets. Anything that tries to tell you that you're less than, anything that tries to tell you that you can't have it, anything that tries to tell you that is unavoidable, inescapable, anyone that tries to tell you that you can't make it, that is a false prophet, whether it's coming out of somebody else's mouth, out of your mouth, or you're contemplating it in your own mind. Because those type of thoughts can't bear good fruit. There's no way for you to think negatively and produce positivity.
So this was, to me, the heart of the lesson. For me, this was my personal heart of the lesson, everybody. This is what I'm talking about since I pulled the clips. But I think the idea of sowing and reaping, and that you can be walking around wanting to reap what you haven't sown.
Right.
And so these thoughts that you're thinking are seeds that you're sowing. And it was the wake up I needed in terms of being mindful of what I'm thinking about and what I'm saying.
Right. And it's a false prophet because it's telling you something that's not true. A prophet's job is to proclaim truth. Yet we're listening to the false prophet, this inner conversation or conversations that are coming from other people that does not speak to God's wholeness in the individual. Again, it's reminding us that we have to watch our mouths. We have to watch what we allow our minds to get stuck on. I was just actually watching a video. I might have sent it to you on Instagram. I'm not sure, about neuroplasticity, where even the medical doctors are talking about how when you create that new thought, that new ingrained belief, it actually creates neural pathways in your brain to communicate to your systems in your body, whether it's nervous system, digestive system, etc., to actually do the job that you've convinced your brain is happening. So by you telling yourself everything is in divine order, or if you're speaking, my stomach is in divine order, or my knee is in divine order, and you're holding that, and that becomes a repetitious thought, you're actually creating grooves in your brain to actually make the body do what you're telling it to do. So seeing it in your mind over and over again, feeling it, having conviction with that feeling, and then speaking about it is actually creating neural pathways in the brain that get stronger, and it withers the old neural pathways that you don't need. This metaphysical stuff we talk about is fantastic. We don't even realize, I think, at times, the depth in which this new thought metaphysics, this practical Christianity that we teach, this Christian metaphysics that we are caretakers of, is science is backing up what mystics have been writing about for centuries.
Because they're on the catch-up train, and whatever we need, like, this is regardless of what we teach, regardless of what you hear, what you read, that you ended the sermon, and I'm not going to I didn't pull this clip, so I'm not jumping on top of one of my clips, but it's the idea that you really do need to practice and work it, right? That these are these theories, I call them theories. They are absolute fundamental truths, but they're a theory until you work it in your life, right? And so that is what we are imploring you to do. One of the things you mentioned in the lesson was that growth happens in divine order. And I pulled a clip about this, but I wanted to pull this out and just focus for a minute, because just as you're talking about establishing rituals and having these practices so that you are training your mind on how to put God first, right? You're training yourself in that way. But that growth happens in divine order. And so there are times when I think we want to skip divine order. We want to rush divine order. We want to rush growth, I should say, right? And I know that I've been in that situation where it's like, I just want to hurry up and get there. And but there's development to happen. There's a reason for the order of things, the way that things grow. It's a reason that, babies develop at the rate that they develop. And you don't want, one of my girlfriends has she's grown up now, but her daughter walked when she was like 9 months. And 8-9 months, something crazy early. And it sounds like, oh my gosh, she's so smart. But at 8 or 9 months, there are motor skills you don't have yet. There's depth perception that you don't have yet. So she was constantly bumping into stuff because her growth wasn't at the rate where she should be walking yet. You know what I mean? It was one of those things that was really interesting to watch. So growth happened in order. Let me play this quick clip, and then let's talk something about that. This one's super quick.
All right.
People want fruit, but they didn't sow. They're waiting for a ship to come in, but they didn't send a ship out. That's out of order.
So I pulled this one specifically because one is just hot, right? It's just by itself. It's hot. How many of you are waiting on the ship to come in that you didn't send out?
Yes.
It's like waiting to hit the lottery and you didn't play, right? Like, just
exactly. Exactly. It's amazing. It's like people talking about being unemployed and they're not applying for jobs.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing how often people want the harvest, but they haven't sown any seeds.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in using that example, it's a great reminder of, again, our consistent practices that we want to sometimes complain about the effects when we weren't properly acting at cause.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Stuff that's showing up, whether it's individually, whether it's in our families, whether it's collectively as a society, our neighborhood, our city, our county, our state, our country, um, just puts up a giant mirror to us and says to us, this is what's going on. I
Yeah.
often, I'm shocked when people are shocked about sometimes the hatred and racism and sexism and phobias and whatever that happen in our country. I'm shocked by that. I'm shocked that people are shocked. Why? Because as a metaphysician, I know that until minds change, actions don't change.
Mm-hmm.
Until minds change, the fruit won't change. All right. You judge a tree by the fruit it bears,
Yeah.
not the bark that it wears. The bark can be some good looking bark. The bark can trick you, but the fruit never will. All right. And here's the thing, you're always planting something and you're always getting something. To say that a person doesn't get fruit is not technically correct. What's more correct is that unconscious seeding produces a variety of fruit. Some that might be a little bitter.
Mm-hmm.
Some, indigenous people know when they go in certain areas, they'll tell you, for instance, don't eat that. They know that's not good for you.
Mm-hmm.
What we're doing as ministers of truth is we're saying, don't eat that. All right. And if you want particular type of fruit or harvest, then you need to plant particular types of seed.
Right.
All
Right.
right. If not, you can be in those movies when the people eat the mushroom and now all of a sudden they're having these psychedelic experiences. Well, some of us are having the equivalent of that in our life, world, and affairs. Well, we
Mm-hmm.
don't know what we're really partaking. We really aren't conscious about what we're doing, and therefore we're living out effects that we could not have foretold.
Yeah.
Now we're in the midst of it. And then now I have to ride it out. I got to recalibrate myself. I got to get myself in order when I could have been in order in the first place.
Yeah. Yep. There's a it's powerful when you think about what seed am I planting right now? What seed am I planting? Because I'm gonna have to eat that. Like I think about it like that. I have to eat that fruit that I right now. I'm planting seeds. I'm gonna have to eat that fruit.
Mhm.
And I like sweet fruit, juicy fruit, prosperous fruit, loving fruit. And so am I sowing those seeds? And that you can begin right now. So let's just say you've been thinking garbage thoughts. You've been planting garbage seeds all the way up until today. You just clicked in and was like, wait a minute, I can choose the seeds I plant.
Mhm.
You can begin to plant new seeds and shift your thinking right now, because you can now establish order, that you can adjust your thinking. You've been given, that's one of your superpowers. Is
Yes.
that you can grab your mind back and put God first, the God idea first, the good first, what is true first, however you want to phrase it. This next one I thought was really powerful, because you're talking about living. You start talking about living beyond your consciousness, and I used to call that quantum leaping, one in a quantum leap in faith. Here's that clip.
All right.
There's nothing wrong with quitting the job. But if you don't have the consciousness to back up your actions, sooner or later you're going to be looking for somebody to throw you the life preserver, because you've jumped into the water and you can't swim. That's they haven't developed the consciousness of abundance to create what they need and end up creating financial problems for themselves and often others who have to cover for them.
Mm-hmm.
Another example is when people have not cultivated a consciousness of God's divine healing life and try to demonstrate a level of spiritual healing beyond the level of consciousness. In other words, they just say, no doctors, no medicine, no anything. I don't need medical assistance. But they haven't developed the consciousness.
So many parts of this one. There's just so many juicy little things. I'll just speak on the health and bring that up to talk about, because one of the things I'll tell people is, what do you do when you get a headache? And they're like, oh, I take an aspirin. I said, well, okay, so you're trying to pray away cancer. But when you get a headache, you take an aspirin. Like, look at where your consciousness is around your own ability to heal and work from there. I had a family reunion this past weekend, and it was really lovely. But you can see how family cycles are, where there is someone who is constantly putting themselves in positions to be rescued.
Yes.
Constantly putting themselves in positions to be rescued, where they're not thinking in alignment. Well, not even not thinking. It's just that I'm going to give it a shot. It's like always something that is beyond their consciousness. And where's the family to come be the life preserver? If that is you, I want you to wake up to yourself today.
Yes. It's kind of funny to me, using the money example. People jump out, they make emotional decisions, habitually wrong decisions. And when I say wrong, I mean for their well-being. And then they expect everybody else to turn their urgency into their emergency. So what ends up happening is, now the loved one has created this problem. Now people have to recalibrate, because many people love people, they support them, they want to be there for them, but they don't realize that to a certain extent, you got to let some people fall on their behinds. Now, the challenge is when you're married to the person, or when that person's your child, for instance, or even a parent, from a standpoint of putting themselves in positions with some of the, choices that they've made. And now they've created burden for their children, and I'm present to this in a real way. And, I've seen it with my own family. I've seen it with other people's families close to me. I've seen it with church families, where people are consistently creating trauma with their decision-making, with the lack of wisdom, with the lack of understanding, with the lack of being in order. And then other people have to figure out how to pull them out of the hole, or support them in ways that they shouldn't be supporting them. And I think it's a certain level of that goes along with this belief, entitlement and privilege, to think that I can spend my money and take the actions I want without regard, because I know somebody's going to rescue me. There's always a lifeguard on the beach. But guess what? In life, there's not always a lifeguard on the beach. And you might throw yourself out there saying, I'm going to demonstrate this truth without any level of consciousness for what you're talking about. All right. A person talking, I used to tell students, you want to, you praying for prosperity, and you won't even accept lunch from your best friend. And they can't connect the dots. But here's what I'm aware of. I don't know if you ever heard Reverend Coleman say this or not. But Reverend Coleman used to say, back in the day, God doesn't know the difference between 1 penny and $1 million. It's, in God, she was saying it's all substance. So if you have a hard time demonstrating the penny, and then you're going to talk to me about millions. So when I tell people, unless it's a situation, a circumstance where you feel as though you're being manipulated, or somebody's trying to influence your decision making, someone says, hey, let me pay for dinner this time. Let me pay for breakfast this time. accept that as a blessing, because you're opening yourself up to the divine flow.
That's it.
I had lunch with one of my cousins who was here from Las Vegas. He came hometown to visit his dad, my uncle, and we went to eat. And I'm ready to pull my wallet out, and I was gonna pay for both of us before I could say anything. He's like, "Oh, I got it, cuz," and all I said, "Thank you."
Thank you.
Why?
Yeah.
Because I'm open and receptive.
Yeah.
To divine abundance, whether it shows up as a lunch, as it shows up as big checks, if it shows up as big opportunities or whatever else. So if I can't demonstrate the little, as you said, the headache, then I'm trying to tackle the dis-ease with all the medical names and terminology and medicine to go along with it. That's a monumental leap.
Yeah. Yeah.
And go ahead, excuse me.
And no, I was saying that, and that's that leap in consciousness, right? That we will say the principles don't work, the truth doesn't work, because you stretch further than your practice. Yes. And so this is I want to reassure you, because I know that I've had my heart broken by the principles before, where I stepped out in a space and made some financial decisions because I had affirmed that I am wealthy 20 times. And so now I'm ready to make some decision that had I hadn't planted seeds for, right? I hadn't built a consciousness for. But I learned in those times. So I want to, if there is an opportunity, because somebody tried to shortcut me and I just couldn't hear it, right? Yeah. I just wasn't ready for it. But there will be an opportunity for you to show who you are and show what you know. Be loving enough to yourself to recognize where you are and stretch beyond that place. But if you listen to someone who has, been practicing, and you see them go out and there was a funny TV show, not funny, but I love this show, This Is Us. And the one of the main characters was reunited with his dad, who was a musician, and this guy is like a math and science guy. And for some reason, he thought that he can just go play the piano and it would just be this moment where he would be great. He would be able to sing and play the piano and be great. And it was horrible because there was no practice. You're looking at somebody who has been practicing, and here you go thinking, I'm just going to show up with the desire and I'm going to be able to play. And I know that sometimes I would tell myself to stop trying to practice prosperity at the checkout counter. Like, all right, God, I'm gonna buy this because I know the money's gonna show up for it. Right. No, build consciousness of wealth. And then you begin to notice things like what you talked about, Rev, with somebody wanting to pay the check for you. Little discounts that come up. Like I said, okay, wait a minute. I see that I'm building a consciousness of prosperity. And now I want to take it to that next level. So you can see where you are by kind of what's going on around you as well. That's a good check-in, I think.
Well, I think the best analogy we can use for what you just said is simply this: workout method. If a person has a personal trainer, the personal trainer is going to do one basic thing, even if they never say this is what they're doing. They want to stretch you just to the level of being uncomfortable, but where it doesn't break you. Mm-hmm. So my Kung Fu teacher used to always say to me, Gaylon is stimulation, not annihilation. That was his term. And what that meant was, I'm going to stretch you to a certain level of being slightly uncomfortable, but not beyond that. Because that's how you grow. That's how you build the muscle, the flexibility, the strength, agility, the skill, etc. But if he was to try to push me to the level he was at, I might have potentially harmed myself. Mm-hmm. All right. And then here's the thing. And when you harm yourself, you set yourself back to even lower than where you previously began or started. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So making that money decision, I'm just going to go buy the car. I don't know how God is whatever. And you haven't built any consciousness for it. Like, okay. So I'm not saying that those things can't happen. What I am saying is 3 affirmations and one Sunday sermon does not necessarily mean your consciousness has been renewed. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to play a couple more clips. This one, you talk about the law of mind action in this one. I wanted to include that here.
What I'm saying is a surface level of knowledge will not meet the needs of serious life challenges. You can't pretend into Christ consciousness. You grow into it. God's divine truth must be developed into a realization. It must function as a deep subconscious conviction. How do you do that? Next point. This is how we do it. When you understand God is divine law, your world changes forever. Divine order teaches us that the universe is principle-based, and so are you, because you're a part of it. You're an expression of it. You're not separate from it. In other words, you are a spiritual being living in a spiritual universe, governed by spiritual law. God's universe isn't chaotic. It is governed and ruled by divine laws. We teach that the law of mind action says, thoughts held in mind produce after their own kind.
So a lot of good ones in there. I thought this was particularly powerful, that God's divine truth must be developed into a revelation. And this is, I know this is helping somebody. It's helping me just to hear these things again, because when you want to shift, like I want my life, world, and affairs to change, but I'm still developing the truth in me so that it's revealed, so that it's what I know, right? And that knowingness, that's when you begin to see the experience, the fruit, right? That knowingness is when it's taking root in you, and you began to see the fruit of it.
Yeah. Now I didn't, because it was a little bit of a time crunch with my sermon, because we had so many things going on in that service that day. So one of the parts that I could have added to this is it initially shows up as a revelation, but the revelation has to turn into a realization. Use the word knowing. It's the same thing. Okay. It has to become real to you in thinking and feeling. It has to be not only something that is held as an image in your mind, but also as a conviction in your heart. The realization turns into manifestation. People try to go from revelation to manifestation, but no, you go from revelation to realization to manifestation. Your knowing creates the demonstration. Emmett Fox stated it this way. Everybody knows I say this quote all the time. There's no such thing as undemonstrated understanding. All right. So when that revelation turns into an understanding, now, as they used to say when I was a kid, you're cooking with gas. And so, but you can't ever get to a realization if you don't have the revelation, if your eyes aren't opened to the possibility. Okay. I think this is one of the beautiful things about our teaching. It is exceptional when it comes to revelation. Like, okay, wow, I didn't see that before. And now that you see differently, you get to do differently. This is one of the things, to go back to the previous point, just to tie with the revelation. This is one of the challenges that sometimes when people try to read above their pay grade. And what I mean by that is, for instance, I love Joe Goldsmith. I have more Joe Goldsmith books than probably any other person, personal author. But here's what I'm present to. Joe Goldsmith to say, just be still and be. You don't have to visualize. You don't have to train your subconscious mind. You don't have to affirm. Mind's not a power. It's just be in the spirit and everything is done. Here's the challenge. In most of his material, he doesn't tell you how he got there. Okay. And in his book, Foundation of Mysticism, he tells, because most of his books are transcribed lessons. He talks about how he took his people too quickly into the mysticism and they didn't understand the metaphysics. So they would have experiences, these revelations, but they didn't know how to systematically, one, get back to the revelation, two, how to teach other people how to do it, and most importantly to me, how to practically apply it in your everyday life.
Right.
So a person can read him and say, I don't have to do anything but be great. If you can do that. That's like me saying, all I got to do is grab the basketball, dribble down the court, and take off from the free throw line like Michael Jordan with one hand and double pump dunk the ball. Guess what? I'm not in the space to be able to do that. So what I would say to people is, work with truth at your level, and your level is fine.
Yes.
And as you grow and develop, you will change and allow the spirit within you to to morph, to change your practices as necessary and needed. There's some things where you might need to just be still, and some other stuff you might need to really affirm. It might be some other things you might need to really visualize. It might be some other truths you might just need to contemplate. I don't know. But here's what I do know. The truth for you is in you.
Yes. 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 I have a couple more clips. I know we're running to the bottom of our time, but I want to share this clip about, I called it spiritual fitness.
Okay. All right.
Spiritual fitness.
God's perfect pattern resides within you as your spiritual nature. When you create an orderly way of thinking through your prayer work, through your meditation work, through your study and practice, your life will reflect order. Let me make this plain. Does anybody think that you can really seriously get in shape by working out 1 day a week? Let me ask another question. Just poll in the audience. Does anybody here really think that you can get in shape by working out 5 minutes a day? No. But somehow, some way, that's how we do our prayer and meditation work.
So this is all working together in terms of how this conversation is flowing, because this is what I know. I'm personally encouraging you to begin the spiritual fitness work, right? So he gave 3 different pieces of homework. This is a workout. This is a spiritual workout. It is to affirm everything in my life is in divine order. It is to read Psalm 23 every morning and every evening for a week. And it was to read, I'll put this in the chat for you. It was to read this chapter in Divine Audacity.
On order,
right?
On order.
And so, so this is a workout, right? This is one of the ways that you can begin to shift your awareness, to adjust your thinking on the truth, and be practicing at it. So there is a method to what we're talking about here. And so your spiritual fitness is your responsibility. And as a coach, as a minister, as a teacher, as a practitioner, we're here to support you in your workout. We're here to give you new regimen. We're here to support you in getting your mind right around how to work it. And so you can ask questions, because I know that when I'm working with a trainer, my form improves on things, because I'm just doing what I know to do or what I've seen somebody else do, but they're looking at me and they're giving me adjustments, so that typically it's like, oh, wait a minute, you're not lifting this properly. Or you do this and it's like, oh, wait a minute. So this is so you don't hurt yourself. Like you're going to injure your arm. Or so those are the type of things that that happen when you're in this community. And some of us have we've been doing that 5-minute in and out. We've been doing that. I'll meditate a little bit. I study a little bit here and there. And I want to invite you into the regimens we've created for you. That's what these classes are about. That's what these rewinds are about. It's a regimen that exists already. You don't have to make this up.
Yeah. And we give the handout in church and online for each of these 12 power lessons. So that's another way in which you can work with you and your family. If you have, people at home with your children, or anybody that wants to work it with you. The main thing is the consistency, just like working out. It's the consistency. Sometimes we try to use as a lever this little bit of working out, this little bit of praying, this little bit of meditation, this little bit of study, this little bit of contemplating spiritual ideas and ideals to lift a humongous life experience.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I'm not saying that truth can't be a lever, but even a lever has limitations based upon the length of the lever. Now, okay, the more work you're doing with the presence of God in you, the more leverage you have in your life rolling affairs. So I just want everybody just to be present that as I wrote this lesson on order, what I was trying to get across was one basic thing. God is already good, and good is omnipresent. And when we get in order, we get to be in the divine flow of what already is. You don't have to make health, divine life, it already is. Divine substance already is. Divine love or grace is already is. But our capacity to understand and utilize it is based upon the work that we do. The truth is in you.
Yes. So good discipline will be to stop right here, but I do want to play this one last clip. Because I didn't want to get past the mind-body connection. We touched on it at the top, but I wanted to share this part of the lesson, and we'll wrap out on this.
All right.
In other words, these centers, as we contemplate and meditate, we realize that certain aspects and parts of our body start to connect with the idea. So you start thinking about love, your heart, right? Things are out of order, you tend to feel it in your abdomen, stomach area, below and behind the navel. What does that mean? It means that the lack of order can affect your digestive system. Some people feel like they have stomach or digestive issues when their minds and lives are out of order. Some people develop growths in their digestive or abdominal areas. People get stressed and they end up with the ulcers. And where do they show up? Where do they show up when the mind is out of order?
So I pulled this one specifically because just thinking about our whole self, right? The spirit, soul, and body part of us, that interconnection. You talked about the neuroplasticity, the neural pathways in our brain that can be changed, that can be directed, and that can be a healing force. I also want us to understand the signals our bodies give us when we are out of alignment with our gifts. What was it that Spider-Man would say, that my spidey senses is tingling?
My spidey is tingling,
right?
Yeah.
That there's a message coming through. There's wisdom coming through. I'm getting the tingling. So what does that look like when something's not right? It didn't feel good in my gut. Like something in my body just was like, this is your power. These are your powers. These are your spidey senses tingling.
Yes.
Trying to tell you something. And I think that is because you don't want it to crystallize into something that is needing to be removed, right?
Yeah.
That energy begins to crystallize in your body. So I think our mind body connection is really powerful. And so Rev, tell me if there is let's say you do have a troubled gut, right? That you are having digestive challenges. What would you say would be one thing you would recommend for dealing with that from a spiritual perspective?
Okay, so first of all, I'm not giving medical advice.
Let
me just put that right out there. I'm not a medical doctor. She isn't. And I'm always going to tell people, go to the doctor.
Absolutely.
Now that we've got that, in addition to, all right, I would again create some level of systematic order on, okay, I need to figure out how to get my thinking, feeling, and words particularly in order. And then in practice, in prayer, write out affirmations that specifically address it. I would write out things, get scriptures on peace, things like that, things that order my steps, and your word is like a lamp unto my feet type scriptures, things about peace, love, grace, order, and start to affirm and to visualize, sit still, create some time for meditation. All right. And give yourself some level of mental trigger to where you're saying, basically, I'm not here for that. Because once you start saying, I'm going to be more peaceful, I'm going to be more understanding, I don't want the stress showing up in my body as growths and movements and in harmony in my body, opportunities are going to show up for you to test it.
That's right.
And you have to now have to put something in place to where you trigger yourself not to go there when people want you to go there. Like, you know what? It's just not worth it for me. You know, one of the things that I would highly recommend, 2 books. I taught one of them on my podcast many years ago. 3 books actually, but the first one is a real easy read. It's by Gerald Jampolsky. It's titled "Love is Letting Go of Fear," because it talks about the projections that go along with how error consciousness can show up and disrupt the mind and body too. He wrote a book. Gerald Jampolsky wrote a book called "Forgiveness: The Greatest Healer of All," and he maps out some of the physical symptoms that happen when the consciousness is out of order, and how forgiveness actually heals the body. All right. I highly recommend that book. Highly. I so recommend that, highly recommend that book. I can't recommend it high enough. It's about that thin.
What's the name of it?
Forgiveness: The Greatest Healer of All. This is where I got the quote. You've heard me say this many times teaching. Forgiveness means giving up all hopes for a better past. That's where it comes from. The third one would be, if I was working with just getting my consciousness in order for my body, is my overall book is The Eye of the Storm, capital I of the Storm, by Gary Simmons. I think that book is a game changer in life. It's a top 5 book, in my opinion, of any book I've ever read about getting your mind in order so your life can show up in order. All right. Because the idea of the eye of the storm is the storm is happening, but the eye, in the case of a hurricane, EYE, is always calm. And the eye of the storm, capital I, means the Christ or the God presence in you is always peaceful, always centered, always whole, even as you have circumstances whirling around in your life. So you have to learn how to get in contact with the I, capital I, the I am in you in the midst of the storm. Yes, that's more homework. But if you're working with stuff that where you're feeling stressed, your stuff is showing up in your body that you don't like, I just gave you 3 resources to be able to work it. And here's the beauty.
Oh man, you didn't rock the third one.
Yeah, it was The Eye of the Storm.
Forgiveness: The Greatest Healer of All.
Healer of All. And Love is Letting Go of Fear.
Oh, okay. And that's by Letting Go of Fear is by who?
Both of them are by Gerald Jampolsky, Jampolsky.
One more time.
Jampolsky.
Okay.
And the beauty of these 3 books, well, at least 2 of them, I know for a fact I taught Eye of the Storm on my podcast, Truth Transforms with Reverend Gaylon McDowell. If you go to mindbodyspirit.fm or Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, whatever podcast apps you use for the platform, I taught the Eye of the Storm chapter by chapter years ago, and then I interviewed the author at the end of it. All right, and I might have taught Forgiveness: The Greatest Healer of All. I really don't remember. I've been teaching the podcast for 12 years. I've taught so many books as I'm, I don't even know. Till I was scrolling through the other day and was like, man, I taught this? Wow. I didn't even realize it. So, because we can't, I'm always on to the next thing.
Yeah. No, I get it.
No, it's forgiveness with a hyphen. Forgiveness: The Greatest hit.
Forgiveness.
The greatest. It's forgiveness: the greatest healer of all. But anyway, if you're working with trying to get your body and mind in order, those books will help a lot. All right. A lot. Because what you have to recognize is you're living in one context and now you have to live in another one. You have to lovingly put down the old mental framework and you have to create a new one that's holistic, that will help your mind and your body. And these 3 books in particular, I believe, can help you. And you can listen to my podcast, Teach the Eye of the Storm, chapter by chapter, so you can have a guide help you work through the material. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah. And listen, Cheryl said, I'm going to read these books and get rid of cable because that's the distraction. Like sometimes you're like 3 books. How am I read 3 books? You got to let go of something. Let me say this before we wrap out, because one of the things that I started this by, if you were dealing with something and you were feeling it in your gut, how do you deal with it spiritually, right? So Rev clarified that I'm not talking about how you deal with it medically. I'm talking about how do you deal with it spiritually. Like, so this is alongside whatever else you're doing. But the biggest thing is that if there is something acute going on into your life, you need to consecrate yourself to good, to God, to love, to order. You need to dedicate yourself. This is if you really want to be well.
Yes.
Right? If you really want to be well, you're going to have to do something different. You're going to have to declare order in your thinking. And that means you're going to have to make some adjustments.
Yeah. So what I would ask the audience as we wrap up, because I know we got to wrap up, is put in your calendar your own appointment with God time. If you use Google Calendar, or if you use a handheld calendar, old school, put a time in your day every day for 3 things: study, prayer, affirmative prayer, what you're affirming, and some level of meditation, contemplation, visualization, visioning, whatever your process. And it's a dedicated amount of time. I would say if you can do 30 minutes a day, no matter what, of consistent prayer time, is and why I say consistent, it would be similar to, I'm going to get on this treadmill every day for 30 days. It might not show up in a week, but if you do 30 days on a treadmill at a decent pace for a year, guess what will happen? Or 30 minutes of walking around the neighborhood every day for a year, you will get demonstrable results that not only can you see, but other people will see. So if it happens in the physical, it can happen in the mental and spiritual. So put that appointment with God into your calendar, 30 minutes a day, study, affirmative prayer, and some form of meditation, and watch it transform your space. But you got to be consistent. It's every day in order.
Yeah. That's right. Thank you all so much for your consciousness today, for your activity in the chat. Candace, Sheree, Cheryl, Dot, Christopher, I see you. Barbara, I see you. Deborah, I see you. Regina, Alita, hey Alita, Kai, thank you so much for your wonderful comment. And let me see who else came in here. Dot, of course, is in here. Daphne and Pamela, thank you so much. And Miko, thank you so much for joining with us live. We appreciate you. We're sending love out to the Daily Inspiration team. We know we rescheduled over so that 2 things are running at one time. We will be mindful not to do that again. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you for those who are listening later on. Remember that if you have questions, you can always pose them in the Facebook group. Are you in our Facebook group, the CUT Collective? I want to invite you to go ahead and join in to the group, because we got to get the action going. We got to get the activity going. And so this is where you can put your questions. I posed a question. I want to bring it back to the table. Rev is doing a series on prosperity following the 12 Power series. And he said that we're putting it out there for you to name it. So if you would like the name, help us come up with a name for the series. You know how we do at CUT. There's a beautiful graphic that's going to be created, all of that. But we need your suggestions on it's a prosperity series. We're talking about money, all things prosperity, but money is going to be a part of that conversation. And so I'm inviting you to join in on the fun and help us name the series. So just with that, I want to give thanks and praise for this time that we have together. I want to give thanks and praise for each and every person who is a part of this collective, who's a part of this community, who is ready right now to restore order, to reestablish order in their thinking so that their lives may be transformed. We're so grateful for this opportunity together to renew our minds. And what we do is that we renew our minds with expectation. We're all in expectation of the harvest because we are planting good seed. And we're grateful for this. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. In the name, nature, and the consciousness of Christ, I pray, and let it be. And so it is. Amen.
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 Thank you all. Thank you all for joining us. Much appreciated. And spread it. If it's on your Facebook, share it on your Facebook wall.
Yes.
Text the YouTube link to someone. Let's help get this better living message around the world. God bless.
Thank you. God bless you. God bless you. We'll see you next week.